Okay, with our basting done, we're ready to start the quilting process. So I've drawn my X's on these squares, and if you have kind of like a less expensive machine, then it won't feed all of the layers through at the same rate, and your top layer will go through a little faster. So you can get a quilting presser foot, which is something that you just attach on. You unscrew the screw here and then you attach on your quilting presser foot. But if you have a little bit of a nicer machine, then it might be able to feed them through well enough. I know that mine doesn't totally do them all at the same rate, but it's good enough, so I don't bother with changing my presser foot. So you might try that on, a sample little quilt sandwich and see if you think that it'll work if you need a quilting presser foot. I'll also show you how to do it hand quilting in just a minute. Alright, so when you're quilting, on the edge it's really not that hard. But as you get into the middle, you have all of this bulk that you have to roll up and you have to fit through here. And I've found that if I just roll it like this as I'm going, then it's much easier for me to fit it through rather than if I just tried to kind of bunch it up. But you can find out what works best for you. Alright, so I'm going to get my thread going the right way, and I'm going to start at the edge. I like to backstitch, but I like to do my backstitch within this 1/4 inch of the edge of the quilt. That way, when I sew on my binding, the backstitching will be covered. And I'm just going to sew right on the lines that I drew. So I'm going to start and backstitch just a little bit, and then sew. I also, when I'm quilting, especially since I have a soft backing, I feel that I have to kind of help it come through. So I put my left hand back here and I just gently pull. You don't want to pull really hard or you're going to get uneven stitches, but I just kind of help it through. Now I also like to reach underneath every once in a while and just be sure that the backing is flat. When I first started this quilting step, often my backing would get bunched in the back, and then you just have to unpick what you quilted and do it again, which, can get kind of annoying. But if that happens, don't worry, it's just part of the process. Alright, so there is your machine quilting. You can see that line just go straight this way, and then I'll do all of the other lines going the other way. And on the back with the minky, you can see the quilted line as well, so it kind of makes a fun crisscross pattern on the back. But another option, and something that I really like to do, is just hand quilting it. So I'm going to just show you really quickly how I would do that. And especially if you don't have a sewing machine or a quilting presser foot that can do them all through at the same rate, this is a great option. This is one quilt that I did that way, and I love the look of the hand quilting. So let's try it out. First off, make sure that you still draw lines on your squares where you're going to do it, unless maybe if you're quilting along a seam, then you wouldn't need to draw lines. But if you're going to do the X's, go ahead and draw lines. Otherwise, you spend all this time hand quilting and it looks like it's just kind of wandering around. So I did this with an air-soluble marker, so you might not be able to see it, but I do have a very faded line right there. So I'm going to go ahead and use this gray thread to match the other gray fabric. And if you have a little bit of a longer needle, mine's kind of short, but if you have a longer needle, then it's a little easier to do a running stitch. So I like to do it so that my thread is too thick, meaning you can see it starts down here, it goes all the way up through the needle head and all the way back down. And then you can just tie a knot on the bottom. Right, let's try that again. So when I'm tying a knot at the bottom, I lick my finger, I wrap it around once so that you can see that it is crossing over. Let me do that again. And then I just kind of twist it until it comes off my finger, and then I pinch it and pull it tight. So there's the knot. Okay. Now this is, I love hand quilting, like while I watch a movie or something like that. You can use a quilting round. That's kind of like a big embroidery hoop to help you if you want. So come in, I like to come in underneath the batting to hide the knot, but you can also just come in underneath the quilt top if you want. Okay, and you'll come up. Then I kind of fold this over and I just do little stitches. So I go down and then up, and this is what I mean by a running stitch. If my needle is long enough, then you can go down and up a few times before you have to pull it through. So this needle is a little bit short, but down and up, down and up, and you can see I'm just kind of like moving the fabric with I don't know, I manipulate the fabric to make it easier to go down and up like that. Okay? Alright, so you keep going along until you're ready to end, and I'm just gonna kind of go far over here and pretend like I have to end in the middle, because for this spot my thread is short enough that I can tie a knot here at the end. But if you have to finish off and you're in the middle of the quilt, what you do is you just take 2 stitches. So I'm going to go, here's where I came up, I'm going to come down about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to take a little stitch, and I want to come up right where this is coming out. So I go down 1/4 inch, put my needle in, then I'm going to kind of manipulate the needle so that it's coming up as close to where that thread comes out as possible. That's my first stitch. So now just pull it. Okay, now just do that again. So go down right where your stitch was before, and then come back up right in the same spot, or as close as you can get it. So that stitch looks a little thicker, but it doesn't really show. And then to hide the end of the thread, what I do is I'll just come pretty close to where this stitch started, and I will stick my needle through. And you don't want it to go all the way through to the backing. We're going to kind of bury the thread in the middle. So this is in between my quilt sandwich. It's in the middle right now. And I just go off a little ways and come up. You can see that. And then I'm just going to clip right there and kind of move the fabric around until that thread has been buried. Alright, so you can hand quilt it, you can quilt it on your own machine at home. You can also send it to what's called a long arm quilter. That's pretty expensive, but they can do, you know, all sorts of patterns. You can also do what's called free motion quilting on your own machine, and that's where you make like the little squigglies that you might have noticed a lot on quilts. But that's a whole nother lesson for another time. So go ahead and quilt it, and then we will put the binding on.